Hi, everyone. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and on our way to the holidays. So I doubt if I might be able to make it tomorrow, but I wasn't sure. My plan is to go to the WIM meeting, answer some questions. They've got some very simple paintings that I'm going to look at, but I wanted to go through some of your paintings. And I thought the best way for me to do that right now is just actually look at them, record it, and then if you want, you can go ahead to the meeting room later and visit with everybody. And I'll try to set that up so that's recorded too. But let's go ahead and start looking at some of your paintings because it's just incredible to watch the work that's coming in and what you're doing and how you're growing as artists. In fact, as you can see behind me, I just did something very, very simple because I've had a lot of stuff going on in my own personal life. Just life happens, and there are things that I need to deal with. It's a medical issue with my father, and what I wanted was something that was a little restful for me, a little peaceful, and that's where this one came from. Plus, I'm also doing those little minis of the mud. I had that in progress, and I was just editing that, and I thought, how can I expand on that? Plus, I want to do other ones, but for this, I wanted to just do something I needed to decompress and play with color. So that's why I have this. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I'm thinking about Tina, and I'm thinking about that painting that you're doing of the porch on the swing. Did I say that? The porch on the swing. The swing on the porch. But actually, let's go ahead and let me pull some of these up. Oh, so that's the beer get language. So you should all be fairly familiar with that now. So I created a bunch of little paintings here, but I want to break them down into segments. I don't want them all popping up like one big thing that we usually do in our other courses. So, what I was thinking about, Teresa, I haven't talked to Teresa for a very, very long time. And I'm going to also see what she posted in her comment section. Let's see. So, she has these gorgeous paintings here. I'll show them to you in just a second. I don't see an issue with that. So I thought maybe she was having a problem, but let's go ahead. I'm going to pop them up. If you're not in the Facebook group, then you wouldn't have seen this yet. They're just outstanding. So let's look at this and I'll get out of the way. Okay. So I'm going to just try to get a little closer here and take a peek. I want to look at the reference photo that you have here. Oops, I'm moving things around in the background, which I'm not trying to do. I want to expand my window a little bit. Okay. I think you've done an absolutely amazing job with the transparency in your color. So if we look at this, look at the transparency and how delicate it is and the great background. Also doing those the beard of the iris. Gorgeous. It looks like it might be pretty small, only because I'm looking at your signature. That is it small? No, it's maybe about a half sheet or something like that. Let's take a look at this. That's beautiful too. I'm looking at your paper. And another reason why I'm looking at this too at this time is that if I can make it to the meeting tomorrow, you might have questions or comments and you can bring them to the meeting. I'll probably have a limited time that I'll be able to join you. So I just really wanted to take an in-depth look at this. Now, you may watch this, you may not. So what I'm really intrigued with are your lines right here, those veins. The way you have the amount of water in there is gorgeous. Let's take a look and see what you did here. And if we look at this, that still works, but that has just such beautiful transparency and is so much more interesting right here. And let's take a look at this one here. So I'm looking at your folds down in this area right there, the little yellow spots, and I'm looking at your stripes through here. Now you handled that really nicely. Let's see if I can get my little arrow going. You handled that very, very nicely. This is very, very nice too. I want to see what you did for this one here. Now, I like your use of color better here than that one, because that seems a little drawn on. And this is a bit more natural. So that use of color works so nicely through here. They're both gorgeous. It really depends what you like best. It's not one is better than the other. I think they're both outstanding. Also, your lines and veins through here are amazing. Your use of color right in here, your brush strokes. Let's see if I can get back to my little mouse, that little arrow. I love how you layered the beard in there. And you have great shading and shadows here underneath that. You have such a nice touch of detail without overdoing it. And the way that you started these lines and then dissolved them works so well. Your use of color in the background really makes everything so dramatic. Great shadow and transparency through here. That works well right up in this area. Also, let's see what else here. Let's take a look at this. Now, this is gorgeous. I think, well, this one is just a little looser and more spontaneous. This one seems a bit more representational. It's still perfect and gorgeous as is. And if I really needed to pick it apart, these little areas right here, let's see if I can try to make that a little bit bigger. What I went to before, that you have nice transparency there. But just personally, I like this better because my eye travels through the whole painting. You have such a gorgeous glow right in here and excellent transparency. I like how this has a little blurred effect and doesn't stand out too much. This still works beautifully here. They're both gorgeous. And let's see what you did over on this one here. I think you just did an absolutely outstanding job. They're both gorgeous. Okay, well, congratulations, Teresa. It's such a pleasure to view your work again. It's been a while. So that looked great. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to get out of that and go to, let's see, what do we have here? I'm pulling a few things up. Let's go to some of the paintings from the Seashell course. Now we go through that in our classes, but since you're members, let's take a peek. This is gorgeous. I mean, gosh, Georgia, that's amazing. You did a fantastic job. I am so proud of you, what you've done here. Absolutely excellent. It's so interesting how this technique, it's not so much about trying to exactly represent what we see, but how it can open up another creative door. And this is Shirley's. Just such an amazing job, Shirley. This is gorgeous right in here. Beautiful, really, really beautiful all the way around. And this is fascinating, this little spot, that little lost space right here, using some of that background worked out so well. And this little shadow works nicely there too. And your starfish is absolutely excellent. It's fascinating to see what everybody has done. Congratulations, Shirley. This is gorgeous. And then Janet. Oops, there we go. I love this shell up here in the upper left. Your starfish is great. You have such a nice touch throughout the entire painting. Excellent detail with not being too tight or constricted. An outstanding job. Okay, so those were all of those paintings. And let's take a look at, let's see, what do we have here? I'm just moving a few things over. Now I'm going to try to make it to the meeting, but just in case I wasn't able to, I thought that this would be a very efficient way of handling time. And I'm going to open up a couple other things. Okay. It's just fascinating to see what you're all doing. Okay, so I think I'm going to go into Mary's here. So Mary, this is the reference photo. I didn't know what these were. You know, looking at this, first of all, I wasn't sure what they were before I saw the reference photo. And I think it's very fascinating. If you want this to be mist in the background, let's go through here. If you want that to be really soft and misty, I want you to notice these lines right there and here. Okay, let's look at the reference photo. So these have the most defined lines right through here on the piers. And you also have, now this is the reference photo. So I want you to notice the water, how they're using that reflection. I'll have to go back to yours to take another peek at that. Let's do that now. Okay, so your reflections are a little bit large and kind of lost in a sense. I mean, I'm not trying to say that in a bad way. What I want you to notice, do you see in the reflection right down here and over here, they're a bit more contained right through here? That would be like a solid transparent stroke of color. And here too, in the reflection. And there are a few of those strokes over in the water just to continue that reflection down. So basically, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to, let's see, can I do this? I want you to, oops, well, I made an arrow. So I guess I'll work with the arrow. Okay, so if we, oh, that's a big arrow, these things. Okay, just like that. Well, that was fun. Okay, I want you to notice that. I'm going to get out of this. And the other thing I want you to notice is that your value is more solid in the piers. The reflection is a lighter value and it's green and more solid. Also, if we look at the horizon over here off towards the city, that has a soft line. I'm going to go ahead and get something else. We have a soft line about there. And the buildings, we see the shape, but it's more dissolved. So the painting that I have behind me of that sunset would actually apply to this also. So for your big area, notice the piers. Okay, if we go here, hopefully you can see, let's try this. If we did our piers a little more solid, so they stand out, and you have quite a few of them. I might minimize them. I think you might have more than what is in the photograph. It doesn't need to be exact, but also you can hopefully see by making them a few at least more solid, they stand out a bit more. And I would have to reduce my tool to continue, but I just want you to get the idea. The other thing I'm thinking about is like what I said, let's think about the reflection. I think I'll try to make this a little smaller. And it's not necessarily that I want to use this color, but again, I just want you to get the idea. I want it to be transparent, more solid. I don't want to bring that dark color all the way down, but I would extend it and not have it be as broken all the way across, and then have a few of those broken lines. So what if we minimize that? You've got the idea of your strokes. You're doing an amazing job. Minimize that. So basically, I think you'll get the idea. The other thing is that we were talking about the horizon up here. This line would not be a hard line, so I would dissolve those. That way our attention will move back. This is a good dissolved line back here. I'm going to try to, if I can make that sort of straight. I'm just going over what you already have. Just dissolve it. You're doing it. So I would try to keep that soft, like what you did. I might have why I did this is I might have a slightly darker value here. The other thing, thinking about what I did in that painting, I want to try something. Let's look at the reference photo. So we have our buildings a little bit darker. So if you went in with your buildings, let's go ahead and get a few of those in. Let's get a few. Okay, so if you have these in a slightly darker value, let's get a few in. Not as light as that. You've got the right idea, and that can work. But what I'm doing in that painting behind me is sort of the same idea, is that I have my color over here. I put my landscape in. So instead of a building, it's a landscape. And then what I wanted to do is make that more misty. So then I came in with a lighter value, or even clean water, but it's still going to be darker. And then I went over that to push it back. So that's going to give it that ghosty look. And then for this area where you have your fog, with a semi-damp brush, not really wet brush, just soften that edge. I also might soften this a bit more. I'm going to take a look at that just by glazing over it. So if we eliminate some of these lines through here, then our focus is going to stay on our piers, and we'll have our ghost image in the background. Okay, great job. So then let's take a look at the next one. Let's see, what am I going to look at here? I think let's look at Anita's painting. I know she did an amazing job, but I'm not going in that water lily, but I'm not looking at that just yet. I'm going to look at her little boy here, because like I wasn't clear when I first saw it. Let's see what she did. I think this was the first one that I saw, and I could not understand exactly what she was doing, because I know the tree seems to be what the comment was, but with the red color, that pulled my attention, and it didn't look like it was on the ground. I didn't notice the string, so that was a bit distracting. So let's see what you ended up doing. I think you did go a little darker behind. Okay, that's good. And minimize and simplify. And perhaps you're cropping it in a little, I'm not sure. So this is what I would consider, which is probably already what you're doing. So back here, I'm not worried about the tree. I see our truck. I want to push the background back, pull the truck forward. I'm not sure if this is a lake or a stream or a street. So in order to prevent me from trying to figure that out and keep the focus on the truck and the little boy here, what I'm going to do is, let's push all that back. So basically I would want just trying to get my tools up. I would get, again, that would be similar to what I'm doing with the thing behind me here. We're going to do a little glazing, even though, of course, you're not going to know what I'm doing until you see it. Okay, so I'm trying to push this back. Just using giant blocks here. So we have some contrast with our little boy there. Push that back, maybe even bring it down just a tiny bit through here. And then what I would do is dissolve it with a damp brush. If you want to keep that color, you can in the grass. I'd be thinking about the shadow underneath him. This is working out all right in the grass. I think I might bring it down a little bit more. And by putting those values in the background, I'd be thinking, where's the shadow side? So just keep that in mind. I might tone down the red because that's really going to pull the eye. I might try to just add more of a little bit of a shadow through there. And you probably have already made some changes to this. Okay. I want to try to keep the focus on that little boy here. And then by pushing everything back, looking at him, I'm looking for where you may have shadows on him. Now, let's look at, did you make any changes there? No. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and think about if I have the shadow side on this side of the truck, I might go ahead and think about just a few little, they're not going to, this is not a skin tone, but I think he's pretty light. And from what I saw with what you did with that little girl on the swing, I know you're going to do an amazing job. So I'm just looking for some little spots that I can add some shadows. I might add a little bit more along the face. So you get the idea. At least that's what I would be thinking. Now you might have a different idea and that's fine. Let's take a look without this. And then if we put it together, it really depends on where you want the eye to go. So here, what I see is pretty much the whole painting. If I want to keep the focus on the little boy, then I would be considering doing that with the background. Okay. Overall, just amazing to see what you're doing. So then let's go ahead and then take a look at our porch. Get out of a few of these. So it's my porch on the swing, right? That's what I called it. So if we look at this, you have these darker values up here. And did you forget that can of raid there? I think you did a really good job eliminating it. So let's look at this. All right, we've got this and that, and I know you're in progress. So you're doing all that work on the chain. Don't get too fussy with that. Looking at your background here. Let's see, I hope I'm not missing. Oh, let's take a look at this. You've got your dark bushes here. You've got your shadows in here. And we've got our area back there. So let's look at this. All right, I'm going to try to, this is what I'm looking at. I'll show you in this picture. I'm looking at the values through here and how they lighten. You've already got this, but I'm also looking how this is lighter than the bottom part. I'm not going to get too caught up in that. I'm not thinking too much about the chain. I would only suggest it. You already have the bushes in here. This is a slightly lighter value over here. And we want to tone this down in that area. So let's go back to, let's see, we're going to go to the mouse. And I'm trying to get the one that you've done a little bit more work to. So thinking about your shadow there and here, looking at your bushes. Okay, so looking at this one, now I am sure that you got a lot of wonderful suggestions from everyone, which is outstanding and the fabulous thing about this group. I love it. So what I'd be thinking about is maybe going a little darker there, thinking of those values. You can clean it up, but just as long as you get the thought. And now let's see, I think your poles are going to be a little darker probably. I think, see, you're being shy there. Don't be shy. And we've got our swing there. We would work with our values again. I'd need to take another look at that, but you're doing an excellent job here. Thinking of the values, and I have something big in mind for that background. All right, then I would glaze over this area. I'm going over both of these actually. So even though it's a block, try to imagine it being a little looser. You know, you're going to dissolve that edge. And I want to take a look at your reference photo again. Okay. I wanted to see what you did with the swing. Okay. Let's see, swing. Okay, so I'm looking at the cushion. Is the cushion lighter than the wood? So it looks like the cushion was lighter than the wood. So what I would consider doing is coming in, maybe adding a few of these. Now, if you see it differently or you like it differently, that is just fine. I just want to give you my interpretation. And then thinking of this idea, I'll bring it back into the bench a little bit more too. Let's do a few of these. And maybe somehow you would come in and add a few more. You would just take the time and look for it. A few darker values here. Okay, so now I would say we have a bit more depth here. You can break up that line with the chain. And what I wanted to talk about is this background, because that was the big hoop-de-doo on what I was just doing in the in that very simple painting behind me. So we've got all this amazing color back here. Now, we don't want all the hard lines that's everybody's going to see that. We want them to know it's there, but we don't need to spell it out for them. So if we go back to the reference photo, let's look at the overall cast of color. You've got your yellow and you've got your reds in here and those gorgeous blues up there. And we can see that this looks a little weak. So using that idea, let's see, can I do it in this with these colors? This is not necessary. This is not going to be ideal. But what I'm trying to do is glaze over that. Let me get out of that. Okay, so your poles are going to stand out more. So you get the idea. And in this bottom area of the porch, we're going to have to do something else. We're going to work with our, let's see, what do I need to work with here? Because it's just kind of hanging out there in no man's land. We'd have to look at the reference photo and then we would dissolve that edge. But if you see how this pushes back, it softens those lines. Then thinking about the sky, what we could do is, this is going to be a little bright. Using that same idea. I don't need it to be blue. I just want you to see how it's glazing over that. And let's see, what if I can, I don't like that color that I just did, but I don't necessarily want to bring that tone all the way up. I could, let's try it. Let's see, I'm going to do that. Get to my tools. So just as long as you get the idea, that is what is important. And then over here, I think I'm going to get a slightly smaller little thing. I would use this just by breaking up that line a little bit. I don't need to put every little chain in there. I mean, you can if you want, but my concern would be if I got too fussy by putting all that detail in, it could really distract. So that would be my interpretation. And then I would look for any other little values that we have in some spots. You might just play around with it. So if we get rid of all of this and then go back to it. That would be my thought on how to do this. Also, when it comes to this area, I might come back in with a little more, just take your time, just as long as you get the idea of what I would be thinking, and you can do whatever you want. I also see you're being very shy and very careful. I have a tendency of just plunging in and just doing it. So I'd like, if you want, give that a try. If you don't, that's okay. So let's go ahead and get rid of that and take a look. Just eliminating some of these here. The porch. Oh, I think we're doing really good. Let's look at this one, and I'll get another one. What are these? Oh, this. Just opening a few of these up. I think I'll open a few of them up at the same time. I can do that. Thank you for bearing with me through all of this. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so just amazing what Mary's doing here with her gorgeous lost edges. Really spectacular, and a little bit of that that granulation through there and the lines. Beautiful abstraction. Now, the only thing that I'm not too sure if I would this area right through here, since everything is so soft, that hard line can be abrupt, but you're just doing just such an outstanding job with all of this. Even if you turn that into just like a big swatch, like what you did right through here with that line, that would be fascinating. I know you're absolutely on track. I'm not I don't really need to even tell you what to do. You're just doing a gorgeous job with those soft edges, and you're mingling color and texture. It's gorgeous. And then Janice, my gosh, beautiful. I love this. I love how you handled your red area. I was going to say red jewel on the left-hand side. Now it works so beautifully with the colors on the right. Your lost edges in the hair is excellent. And to show what she's doing and the detail is, outstanding right through here. Oh, and then even this, that little folded paper, just absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful. And then here, Anita, simply amazing what you've done. This has been stunning, because to see the simplicity and what you have, your use of color is outstanding. And how you have these edges of the white, for your clouds, it looks like, I believe perhaps you might have used that technique that we did in our shell course for this, perhaps, because I'm looking at your lily pad. At least that's what I would think. Maybe you didn't. And your flower is beautiful. You have so much depth in here. The use of color is outstanding. I'm not too sure about this here. I don't know what it is, so I can't really make a comment on that. I mean, this is when I'm really super dissecting and really trying to crawl right into your painting. Also, what's gorgeous is how you handled around your lily pad. Beautiful. And your reflection of the lily. It's just so well done. To see how far you have grown in such a short period of time is pretty incredible. So it's beautiful. Congratulations. Congratulations to everybody. And then I believe this is Sarah's. In the holiday spirit, I love it. So this is not an easy thing to do, playing with, for one, the reds, the different values, and you are absolutely developing your own style. All of you are. It's been incredible to watch, like Mary with the simplicity in her choice of color, and then the same thing with Tina and Anita, where she's going. What everybody's choosing to do is just incredible. So looking at this, the challenge that I've always had with a poinsettia is how to get the depth And do you want to get the depth? Now, the way I would approach it would probably be a lot harsher, and that wouldn't necessarily work, I think, for what you've got here. So the way you have this, your application is outstanding. What we've got here is that the use of your highlights is gorgeous. The same thing over here, your shadows and overall painting. Now, if I was going to change it, like I said, I would not necessarily suggest you do anything like this. I just want you to know where my mind goes. So if we're looking at this, I'd be thinking about what plant I want to pull forward. This leaf is already in the, or what flower I want to pull forward. This leaf is already in the shadow. You've got gorgeous values through here. And let's see, maybe I would want to go a little bit deeper through here. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily want you to do this. I just want you to know what I would be thinking about. If you want more depth, these are just things to consider. You did such an outstanding job. You really don't need to change anything. Okay, let's take a look. Beautiful. So you get the idea on that. If that is something that interests you, you could take a look at that. You could give it a try. And if we clear it, it's not much. See, my change wouldn't be much, but I'm always looking for the shadows. So, okay, you're all doing a great job, everyone. Just outstanding. So then I want to go into this here. Let's get out of that one. Oops. I thought I pulled it up. There we go. So this is Tina's, and I thought that was absolutely fascinating. And it's the same idea of what I was talking about with the porch. So let's look at both of these. This is your reference photo, and this is your a painting. So really, the left-hand side works really well. You've really got that. So the big thing is the house on the right. Okay. And that is not easy to do because that's all in shadow. So if we look at this, so my comment to you is if you notice this back side, this is a slightly darker value than this. That's just gorgeous. So let's see if we look at that, and I'm looking at the shadow that lays across the grass. That looks like snow. I don't know how anybody dries clothes in a time where there's snow there. So how I would handle this is thinking about that light and shadow. I'm just going to go back and forth through all of these for a second. I'd probably add a shadow on your green back there. Okay, so all right, let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to go for my shadow color. It's going to be my blue-gray color, the French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. You might have a different color that you like. It's just a personal preference of mine. I like the Winsor & Newton brand. And I would be thinking about, this might be a little bit darker than I'd like. I'd like it, well, I can fix that. I'm thinking, yeah, I can do that. Okay, so now that separates from the ocean over there. And I'd be thinking about coming in and adding some shadows. So I'm going to switch my tool. Let's go ahead and get this in. And I'd like the roof to have a little bit of color. I don't necessarily need it to be this dark, but just so you get the idea. All right, and then we have some shadow. Let's take a look at this. We've got some shadow. Oops, not that little tool. I'm going to go underneath. You started to. Because I would want a little bit of contrast. That's what I'm thinking about. You're just doing an amazing job. Okay, so what I was trying to say to you was on this backside, if we went back over this a little bit darker, which you might have already understood exactly what I was trying to say. So that's a little bit darker. And then for the windows, we would just go back in a little bit darker. You don't need much. It's just adding that little shadow there. Okay, so then we've got a bit more depth. Do I want to go darker on the beach? I'd have to look at the reference photo again. I might put a little bit of that shadow, just a little bit over it. You could leave some of that green if you want. Okay, and let's go back to the reference photo. That's darker. I'm looking at the beach. I'm looking at the shadow on the house over here. So I think I might use a light value of that shadow color. Okay, this is going to be confusing for just a second. I'm going to try to make it a little bit lighter through here and a little bit lighter through there. So you can see that I'm trying to have the two-tone effect, and I need to go again darker in the windows. Oops, let's try to get that little tool in there. You're doing an amazing job. I mean, your strokes are excellent. I like that little bit of light green through there. And I'm curious if we went ahead, I also would probably go ahead and continue that Eve. And this would not be as light as that, but just so you get the idea, we're working with our values. I might also come in and add a little more shading over here. You can look at your reference photo again. And when it comes to the beach, let's see, we're going to go a little bit larger. I might try to tone that down a tiny bit. And you can play with your values. So using a damp brush, it doesn't need to be this dark. It's just the idea. And then let's take another look at it. Okay, and looking at your image here. So you've done a great job back here on the sand spit. So let's take a look. If we look at the contrast of the ocean with the horizon, and that you've got well, this is obviously the reference photo. So what do we want here? What you could consider doing is using this idea and go a little bit darker. Not necessarily as dark as that, but we'd have a bit more of a line of contrast there, right through here, and then use a damp brush and dissolve that edge. Just a little bit. Okay, maybe I can just go ahead and dissolve that. And then for our land spit, I want this area back here to be a little lighter. So either you're going to have the ocean a little lighter after I've glazed over it, or I'm going to go ahead and go a little darker here. So you get the idea. All right, so you can see if we look at this, let's remove all of that. So you've got everything here. We just need to get some of those values in there, just like what you were talking about with the sea drift and the driftwood. Oh, sea drift. We have a place called sea drift, the driftwood and the sand. So, okay, gorgeous. This is such a beautiful place. I would love to visit there. Okay, so let's see if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it. Let's see. I think we've got it. And speaking of that driftwood, let's go ahead and take a look. I love the idea of doing a class on this. So as soon as I have a second, I would love to play with this. I love all of that. Okay, so if we look behind me, this is what I'm talking about. You can see that it's a funny thing because this is such a simple painting in its appearance, and I didn't want this area to stand out too much. Let me just pull it up a little bit more. Okay, so if we take a look at this, I really wanted to play with the color and I wanted to push areas back, and I really wanted to work more with serenity on this. So this area, oops, that's not perfect. So let's take things back here. I'll do it like this. Okay, so I put the land over here, and then once I put my wash down, I put the land in, let it dry. I had these areas masked, and then I put the glaze in. I used three colors. I used the Antwerp blue, a quinacridone magenta, and I used a new gamboge from Daniel Smith. Quinacridone magenta was Winsor and Newton. Antwerp blue was Winsor and Newton. The new gamboge was Daniel Smith. So why I think this is important is because it's not a small painting. It's a half size, it's a half sheet of paper. So basically what we're trying to work with is a large area, keep the color consistent without it turning into a big bloom or a big mistake. Now I ran into areas because I really didn't know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to achieve with this that could be problematic. And I was so excited once I had everything on that I took my masking off. And then I put more color over it. And then that dulled that down. So I didn't really care for that as much. So I ran into some problems that I thought, my gosh, this should be a very simple painting. Why am I not really struggling with it? But I was definitely experimenting. And then over here, I wanted to put in a landscape or just a piece of land. And then I thought, do I want to, I don't have a brush right here. Oh, so what do I have? I have this fancy thing. So I thought, do I want land over here? Do I want a boat here? So basically to create my composition, I was using brushes like this going, okay, land over here. I didn't plan on having a little spit of land there. So I changed it a lot. So basically, the idea of layering and building the color up is exactly what I was trying to show you in Mary's painting with the piers and in Tina's painting with the house and the porch. And I think there was another one, but you get the idea. Okay, everyone, I hope that really helps. Thank you so much for being part of our community. I think that we have such an amazing community together. And if I don't make it tomorrow, the room is open so you can visit with each other and talk. And I would love to I'd love to hear Anita about how she ended up creating her beautiful painting. I think that's fascinating. And I'm curious if you did use that masking technique, because I know that we all, as we were doing it, were struggling with it. So, okay, everyone, have fun and happy painting. And I will talk to you soon. Okay, take care.